Hi, I'm Heinbach, and it's good to have you back. Welcome to the Patreon Q&A, a semi-regular thing where I answer questions that are put to me by the good people that support my work on Patreon. And there's been a bunch of new faces, so hi everyone, nice to meet you there. If you want to get a question in to answer for me on video, just subscribe to my Patreon. Any tier will work, and watch for when I post another one of the Q&A updates. And now, here are the questions. Gaetan, you experiment a lot with analog lo-fi, but what about digital? There's a bitrate reduction, of course, but I wonder if there's other interesting stuff out there, like maybe peculiar DACs or exploiting compression algorithms or other stuff I can't even think of. I do a lot. So much in digital, actually, because one of my main instruments is the Seat Lombardi Coco Quantus, and that is something that I play live also. And that's basically two 8-bit loopers. It's video chips that Peter Blesser morphed to be usable as loopers for audio. And they've got a very peculiar sound to them. So my world is bathed in aliasing. Even Gauss, the looper app I made with Brambos, has a 1989 mode which emulates the sound of old DACs with all the aliasing that you can get. So there is a lot of digital going on in my life. It's just something that is so part of the live work also that I'm not showing it that much on the video side. But I've got another thing here. I've got the first Eventide digital delay, the 1745M, that I've modded, or it was done by Hideaway Studio to allow for all the aliasing to come through, bypassing all the low-pass filters in there. And Dani did the same to my Akai S612. And you can hear that a bit in the video that I posted on this Cosmograph, the recorder that records onto celluloid tapes. There, the sound of this celluloid cut meshes beautifully with the digital. So yeah, digital media degradation and the beautiful aliasing that comes from that is very part of my sound in general. Joshua Phil Gerlich. Hallo Heinbach, gehst du zur Superbooth? Trittst du dort auf? Und wenn ja, when? If I'm going to Superbooth and if I'm doing a show, I'm not doing a show there this time. I'm just gonna be hanging there. I'm gonna visit a bunch of friends, and yeah, for all my patrons, maybe we'll organize a meetup or something. That could be fun. But else, I'm just there to enjoy. And yeah, this is gonna be good. It's good to go in civil, to not have to be there like as a job or something. Just enjoy and hang around. I'll probably be there Thursday and Friday. I tend to avoid the Saturday because it's a busy event anyway, and Saturday is always the busiest day. Yeah, but I'll be there. Stefan Laforce. If you haven't already, will there be any dub echo project in the future? I'd like to see sound effects to the channel, teasing, feedbacking on the mixer like Reggae Dub, and then maybe slice that up. It's in the works. I've a new mixer here, and I have half of the video I want to do on that filmed, including the process of recapping it and how I set up different bandpass filters so you can slice and dice signals exactly like you would do on dub. And I've got the wonderful EchoFix X2 tape delay here to aid me, to do the dubbing. But yeah, it's just on the list, so it will come. And with that, I've also made an Ableton Live template where I simulate my workflow on the analog mixer in digital, and that actually works really well. It's just something I need to do, and since I tend to now upload one video a week every Sunday mostly, that's by far not enough to get all the things I want to cover. But it's just how it is. Time is the main issue why this video hasn't come out yet. Robinson's Village. Hey, I can't remember if you were asked this before, but any tips how you deal with creative burnout? I've got a video on inspiration where I talk about what keeps me inspired to avoid exactly burnout. And I'll link that up here so you can check that out. Because I've basically arranged my life to get enough points for inspiration every day that a burnout, at least creatively, doesn't happen. Sometimes, of course, there are days where I'm just too tired to do anything, and that happens. And it's very easy, especially when there's a lot of projects, to just not feel to be able to do anything. But whenever I've got like a deadline or a project, I'm usually so into it that I'm not burned out creatively. I'm just burned out for being tired. But I try to avoid this burnout state and stop right before. And if I notice it, I'm taking breaks. And that really helps. Like in January, I took a month off for making videos. And that was really, really good because it enabled me to come back with more energy. And it shows in people viewing. And but since music is something that gives me so much energy, if I don't do it, I actually don't know what to do with myself. I get burned out from not doing music. So I kind of have the opposite problem. I have to make music. If I don't do it, I'm not as relaxed as I usually am. Just making a piece a day and the rest of the day is good. Bishka. Any chance of a collab with Anja Plaschk, Sopenskin? I'd love to hear your more abstract music with her vocals. This has popped up, I think, in another Q&A. I was already asked this question like a few years ago, and so far it hasn't happened. I really like her music. It would be absolutely wonderful, but never met her in person. Michael Ppoolll. Lieber Heinbach, I have to translate this. Dear Heinbach, is it true that the UBM von Roda and Schwarz, as well as the 2113 from Grönemeyer, are putting out up to 120 volts on the output? Doesn't that make patching already dangerous to your life? And how much UBM is in dials? So the UBM doesn't put out 120 volts. I think, what's it here say? So it is 5 volts, but I think sometimes when you patch a banana in it, I think it's a bit more because I oftentimes get a little zap. It feels like 25, 30 volts and it's very loud. So I don't think it's just 5 volt that comes out there, but it's not that bad. So if you put like a line pad, something, it's fine. Just beware, don't touch the hot banana because bing, you're going to get a little zap. It's fine. It's like touching one of those fences around where they have animals in the fields for cows or something. So not that bad. Some of the Grönemeyer stuff will put out. Let me check if the 2113, how much that puts out. Rummaging noises. Doesn't say. No, it does. Okay. So it doesn't say on it. I would have to go through the manual, but I don't think that's one of the main offenders. The main offenders are things like the vobulators, the oscillators, because those are meant to drive these exciters, and that are put, for example, on an airplane, and then it excites, and then you can measure if there's any incongruencies and other like things are resonating that shouldn't resonate. So these things can go very high. They can go 100 volts, 120 volts. So there you would do good to either mod it, but much of the stuff is in general safer, and usually it's noted 25, 30 volts. Lots of tectonic equipment will do that, sometimes 40, but the full stuff, that's for driving motors. Dials has a UBMifier preset that is modeled on the feedback behavior of the UBM in a way that we allowed. The original filter that this is modeled on doesn't have resonance. But since we modeled the filter, we were able to add more resonance. So we can get it to be almost feedbacking. And that's something, I got to know from the UBM. But it's different from the UBM because it's a lot less stable. This feedback on the UBM is very, very stable. And on dials, it's way more wild because it wasn't meant to do that. And that's one of the parts where I really, really like dials. It can turn anything into this monster, especially if you run it in series and you get all these wonderful distortions. David Besser rhymes with lesser. Almost got it on the first try. I recently discovered the world of inexpensive noise-making devices and synths sold on craft marketplace websites like Etsy. I purchased one from Electro Lobotomy and I love it. Have you looked at any of these? Do you have a favorite? Electrolobotomy, haven't heard that name in a long time. Because I used to do scoring for theater, and there I needed to come up with a lot of cheap instruments fast to basically give to actors to make sounds, music, narration with. And I had two pieces by electrolobotomy. The Garden, which is basically, it's just a box with some guitar strings and a piezo and a jack. So you can do wonderful things with that. It's a bit like the Folktech one, except it's passive. And then I had a big one. I don't remember the thing. It's like just two big coils or springs and an amplifier. And that was also really cool. And you could do like bass guitar stuff with, odd bass guitar. And both of them were pretty much ruined in a theater performance because, the actors played them a lot. But I really got a bunch and used them a lot. Absolutely wonderful tools. And I've got boxes and boxes of these cheap noisemaker gadgets. And from decades ago now, it's, I've stopped hunting for them because I've got way more than enough. Gordon Ryan, how do you generally go about constructing a track? Not so much the technical aspects of hardware necessarily, but how you formulate your concepts, select your instruments, general approach, recording them, live performance, piece by piece in a DAW tape, interest in the essential process of bringing a Heimbach composition from idea to an audience. There's one video that I made where I did a composition for saxophone electronics, and I linked that here because that's a good entry in how I approach these things. I have a task, then I set up the instruments, and I create a system that I can play, and then from there more ideas come. Or sometimes I just multi-track regular, like I did for 30 years already in the digital audio workstation. One over the other. Sometimes I just play them live. It really depends on what I want. And there's a few videos where I talk about the processes, especially when it goes to scoring, because that's one of the easiest things because there the topic is at hand. Thus the inspiration is already there. So I just have to figure out how to make this work. But for when I just make music on my own, it's usually trying to create a little experiment. And the experiment means how would this instrument into this instrument sound like? And then I just start playing. And oftentimes I hear in this experiment something that I can then think of, that's, and now this, and now this, and now this. And then I start arranging. And then the track happens really quickly. So the way that I patch and the way that I set up my mixer and everything is there to help me find things in the margins, overtones that then inspire me to write a piece. Yeah, that's all for that I can answer in the Q&A, I think. Jacob Stevens, how do you balance your time between technical experimentation and composition? Or is this a false dichotomy? I hope I pronounced the dichotomy wrong. Correct. But it's in that video. It's in that video where I talk about how these feedback systems that I create in the technical experimentation are part of the composition process. And sometimes it's absolutely, it's hard to divide. And I read similar things when I read books about how Stockhausen developed electroacoustic pieces like radios with two piano players. And where in the interplay of the two piano players mic'd into a ring modulator and filter array, they would discover the composition basically in this experimental setting. And then it would be notated to be repeatable. But still, it is a experimental process where you find out things that you couldn't have thought of. Billy Pilgrim. Hello, Heimbach. I recently started immersing myself into a Max MSP environment called Ppoolll. It's been used by artists such as Fanish and Tim Hacker. What struck me is how much it reminds me of your approach to making music using test equipment, such as using sine waves and modulating them via signal processing and effects. Have you heard of Ppoolll? Have you used it? I think it's a pretty good way to Heimbach on a budget. It's free. Oh, okay. Ages ago, I think I read about it, but I haven't used it, and let me look at it. Let me just look at it. Yeah, I've seen similar setups with other artists, like Mehmet Can. He had a similar looking, but his own coded Max for Live device. Not Max for Live, always keep Max for Live because it's Max MSP. But yeah, it looks very cool. It immediately gets me into this computer music vibe where I'm not that excited to look at it. Yeah, I think it makes sense for people. For me, I'm just not, when I just look at it, I don't feel inspired. But if I probably played it, that might be different. But the website is cool. That looks Discord server. I'm going to give it a shot. Could be interesting to try over the holidays. Well, thanks for letting me know about this. Jimmy Thrasher. No question. I just keep coming back to your C45 ambient take mixes. Love them. Thanks for making your art music. I've heard a bunch of you like the C45s and are asking when they're coming back. So maybe I'm considering making them again. Probably not here on YouTube. Maybe something on Twitch. Maybe doing something live, like a session. It could be fun. But yeah, I'm not doing them here because I think, yeah, this is at some point, like, people didn't watch them anymore, so listen to them anymore. So I stopped making them. That's the main thing. Like, the viewers less and less. So I thought, okay, that's not interesting to so many people anymore. So, but I think doing these live could be absolutely fun. Like, yeah, maybe for Twitch or something, or for like a special live stream. And we got like music live streams coming up because I've got new albums out coming soon. Michel Faux. Hi, I often find myself making a loop or a short progression and losing track of time listening to it. Then eventually giving up on it because I can't find a way to progress. I think I maybe get overawed that I've made something at all. As a result, I've got loads of promising but very short tracks on my hard drive and phone. Does this ever happen to you, or do you have any tips of breaking out of the loop? I love short tracks, and the short tracks is good to have a bunch of tracks around that are always just like one idea. And that's especially cool for when you make like tape releases, because there's always that pesky 1 minute that you need to fill in the first side so it's not empty when you start B-side. So it's good. I would say, first of all, it's good to have a bunch of short pieces. Maybe compile them into like a short EP, give them their own acoustic space where they fit. I always loved those in albums like by Boards of Canada, like these almost skits, like these things that, this is great, why doesn't it go anywhere? Yeah, because sometimes you just can't go anywhere, and that's absolutely fine. But if you want to work these things, music theory will help a lot. Just going through like the circle of fifth, finding out the relationships will allow you to transpose things to different places and return. It's like knowing how to build a house. Music theory really, really helps in that. And that is something that I would look into, as well as dub techniques. Like, take away stuff, take a lot away, and then reassemble. Think about playing it like you would play a mixer, play the mutes and such. That can be a very electronic way to make a track last longer. You just have to think, which two signals will carry? Which of the signals that I have can be played together and they will carry? That's usually a good way to make something that is an idea into something that is a track, if you're looking for something longer. But yeah, tracks don't have to be that long anymore anyway. So if you want to go viral on TikTok, I mean that push it track that has like 1 good minute in the beginning, and then it becomes a disjointed mess of things, which is kind of interesting. But it's funny that you always hear that first minute of the track, and that's been super viral. But the rest is, what's this? This is wild. So I wouldn't worry too much about the length right now. If you think, oh, this is something beautiful and I like it, just call it that. It's a sketch, sketches. Be happy with those. And if you want to develop dub techniques and music techniques like circular fifth, harmonic relationships, and yeah, will allow you to process horizontally through a track much easier. Alex, where do you see this community and your own work in the next few years? Any personal goals? This is like, okay, what's your goal in 5 years or 10 years? I always hated those questions because I couldn't have predicted what I'm now here with, like, talking into a camera about nerdy things. That's something I couldn't have predicted. So I just try to be open to everything and see where that takes me. I really want to keep on making videos, so as long as people watching them, that's something I love. I'm looking forward to working with more orchestras. I've got for 2024-25, I've got already 2 things in that realm planned, and I hope there will be more, because I just enjoy working with many musicians, and I want to collab more. Collaborations is something that I really enjoy, so that's gonna happen. And for the community will hopefully enable me to do all these excursions more and more and more, like the one that I did to the Klingenthal, basically, to Markneukirchen, to Zwote, where in East Germany synthesizers were built. And I'm looking forward to be able, with the support of the community on Patreon, to keep on making these journeys. And maybe meet some of you around at that time. So it goes on. The trajectory I feel like the path is set. I just need to be able to keep on going on it. David Aquilina. This is a very boring question, but what interface and other associated hardware do you use with your iPad, particularly in the live performance settings? Any tips or tricks for making the iPad reliable and a seamless stage instrument? I use the Roland Go Mixer Pro more often than not, and if I want to try something different, I use an RME Babyface, which was my old computer interface, so I have that around. But the Go Mixer has been wonderful, except that I can't find a way to get it to pass, to stop the dry signal. That's the only thing that is annoying about it. So if I need 100% wet signal, the RME Babyface is what I use. I also have the Audient Evo 4 here, but that's exclusively for using the iPad here in the studio. I usually have it on this Rode arm with the small rig, so that's for the studio use. But for live, Go Mixer works really well, and I got it in a nice case. I think that's important, because you need good cases if you want to go live. But else it's been very reliable, no problems. So just get that Go Mixer and use AUM, which is the best mixer environment I know, and you'll be happy. Ken Shestock. Can we expect another long overdue C45 in the future? I know you're busy with 2 kids. My youngest just turned 14. Wow. Just busting your chops. But seriously, where is it? Come on, us old heads are dying. As I said before, C45 should, okay. That's on the to-do. Kalen Sims. Hi, Heinbach. Can we expect to see any more videos regarding tips and tricks and beginner's advanced guides too for any content in the future? Yes, I think I'm doing those. So I did a lot more technique videos, I think, in the past weeks. And that's something I really want to do. I'm not sure if I want to guide it as advanced beginner's guide or something, because I just take technique like the Variac technique and explore it, or the Reverb technique, dedicated how to. So definitely the one on the mixer and dub techniques on the mixer and how I set it up. That's going to be one. Dirk Räke. How did the beat for Grönemeyer happen? Congrats. That must be an interesting story behind that. So for those who don't know, I got a beat on a record that sits on top second place, only beaten out by Depeche Mode on the German charts, and that's for Herbert Grönemeyer. I was asked by the producer Alex Silver if I could contribute some beats, some basic things that they could jam on for the album. And I said, yes, that sounds interesting. I took some from stuff that I had. I composed a bunch of things in all kinds of directions, and then gave them 10 beats, I think. And of the 10, one of the beats Herbert Grönemeyer liked so much, and he keeps talking about it, which is very nice, that he wrote a song based on the beat, which is both rhythmic and has a little melody element, like a din 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 din. And it's so fun to hear a beat that's based on nuclear test equipment on the pop radio. That's pretty interesting. Hopefully I can make a longer video on this soon. But the collaboration came about, because Alex was actually a fan of the channel. He liked watching it. And he also came to my Landfill Totems performance in Berlin that I did for the first time. And that was the connection. Simo Antere. Sehr geehrter Herr Heinbach, I love the gong resonance you made with the metallic resonator. I'm going to build my own sometime in the future, but until I will, I have experimented with my spring reverb, trying to get similar atmospheres. Any experimental tips for spring reverb use in a modular environment to get beautiful resonated tones out of it? Dankeschön. Yeah, try exciters. Try putting an exciter through a spring reverb. Try putting on it so it physically vibrates. Then try just sending it some noise, just sending it white noise, just a bit, really tiny, just like, so it's barely getting excited. That works really well for beautiful resonances. Blowing on it if the tank is exposed, that really works. And a feather is nice for doing wild things with it. And try to have as much range as you can before it starts to feedback when you put it like in a feedback mode, so it just does not go boop immediately. Basic tips, but I think they work with spring reverb resonances. And of course you can just, I've got the big spring reverb here, so when I walk it will will resonate. Ah, lovely. Walt module. Hello Heinbach, I showed you my Tenorion and Strega Yellowbox auto instrument combination at your mini concert. But sometimes when you love and play instrument for a long time, they finally find the perfect match in playing together. For example, Tenorion and Menke's Wingy, my old Korg wave drum, and Make Noise Strega, and especially a Hohner headless fretless bass and Larate form for me such a couple made in heavens. They find each other by the artist's design, the artwork they are, and the way they play with each other. So, my Tenorion sings and plays MIDI notes, from my sofa to every synthesizer in the room for the last 10 years. Before I found the match for its strange, sometimes static sounds. And then this, comparing the peaceful pink Lyra with extra Cosmos effects pedal to a Tenorion with some tape loops, my effects section thought that's not fair. Leading by Soma Lyra Effects heading that argument, they formed a protest group, the Noisy Effects Chain, for the respect of the Tenorion. Splitting Tenori's sound left and right into Wingy 2, one side to a modulated PT2399 Synchrotech delay, then to the cheap Alaze Spring Reverb, and to the other to Lyra effects module, to the Federhall, to a low pass gate. They protest for more time to play and finding the ... Peace and pink to all, no hellhounds to serenade. I'll just leave that standing. There's no question here, but it's just a beautiful description of the setup where Walt found happiness with. And that's interesting. That's always interesting to find something where you say, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to play. This is my thing. Same as I have with the Seat Lombard instruments, where I say, okay, now I don't have to think about my live setup anymore. I've got the core. I can just like add something or not. But when you find that setup and you know it, it's a wonderful moment. Jonathan Glass. If you were just getting started collecting fun old gear and instruments and had only $500 to spend, what would your first purchase or purchases be? Oh, that's a good question. So I would get a tape machine and maybe a second one. Like something that is available locally, looks like it's in decent shape, and preferably has some spare tapes lying around with it. And I think you can get these from 50, 30, 100. So you could get at least two. I would budget 200, let's say 250 for two old tape machines. Consumer grade, but still, those consumer tape machines will have at least two speeds. They will have microphone inputs. They might be DIN or something, but you can adapt. And you can get a cheap microphone to go with that. And yeah, this will enable you to do all kinds of wonderful tape loop noise shenanigans. I think that would be my first choice. So, tape. And that. And then I would look around, okay, what's cool in like old 19-inch rack effects that are lying around? Like if you can get a quadraverb or a MIDI verb, something to add space. Let's say $100 for that. I don't know what the prices are like. I got mine for $60 ages ago, my quadraverbs. Maybe they are more now, but there's so many of them. So that would be another thing. So let's say we are down 300 now, and that would be cool. And then it gets complicated, because what could be like a good upgrade for that? Well, I would actually try to find like some nice oscillator, some nice test equipment oscillator, something vacuum tube. Like, for example, Grundig or Philips made some vacuum tube ones that are tiny, absolutely beautiful. But there, again, you have to look what's available and then judge upon that. And when you got those, so you got tape, which means you've got delay, you've got sound on sound, you've got an oscillator, you've got a reverb, a pulse generator, maybe, could also be cheap to find. And that could already be a setup that you can play. That could already be something where you can just layer upon layer tones, play, and create something. So I would look into these things. That's very general, but with all these things, it's not so much about like what number is written on the front thing. It's more about its function. Does it work? Does it work for you? Is it cheap? Is it available? And then you experiment. That's how I bought most of these things, not knowing like, will it work? And then I refined and refined and refined more. But to start out, just get those things. And I don't know, like, well, another super cool thing is like one of those Yamaha VSS samplers. They've got wonderful sampling features, better than the Casio SK1, and they're still affordable unless you get the very, very tiny one that got popularized by Sigur Rós. So I bought one of the older ones for $90 or something, or $60. And these are things that you can oftentimes find even cheaper because people don't know that anyone has interest in this old keyboard. So then you've got a sampler, you've got test equipment, you've got tape, you've got effects. $500, well spent. And then you can do a lot with that. I mean, yeah, inspiring. I don't need a video. I need to get Reverb to sponsor. Oh, Reverb's too expensive for this baby. Kleinanzeigen. I should get Kleinanzeigen as a sponsor and say, the Heinbach Kleinanzeigen Challenge or something. Oh, fun. Okay. I got ideas, but I don't need more stuff. David Williams. Hi Heinbach, how do you go on about managing the many different projects you're working on? Do you have to plan it out day by day, or do you work on what interests you? As someone who works on many different things simultaneously, it is always interesting to hear other people's processes. Cheers, David. Deadlines. So projects have deadlines, and then I try to make the deadlines. If they don't have deadlines, they don't get done. So yeah, I need to make deadlines. And then there are some things, especially like with product releases, when I work on an instrument, on album release, there are deadlines. That helps a lot. Concerts, deadlines, that helps a lot. Some things I don't do simply because they don't have a deadline, even though I would love to do them. Like I'm still, like Schlaufenzeit. I'm 8 tracks in and I need to do more. But then other things pop up that are like, do them now. So I'm like, okay, I can push this because it's entirely my project, but it's not a good thing. So main thing is I need to, set a deadline and then it works. And how to keep track of them is attached around that date. Get prioritized. And one thing that I do, I try to leave myself spaces to just wake up and say, no, today I'm not going to care for any of the things I had planned. I'm just going to take this thing and explore it and be happy. And I try to budget that time in. And I do that all very loosely. I don't have a calendar. I don't even have a list. I just do it by what's on top of my mind. I try to keep that freedom because anything else, like, I don't want to feel too much like this is a job, this is more calling. I feel this is something that's supposed to be fun, where I can just do the things I want. And that's something I feel blessed with. And I don't want to hurt myself doing that and burn out by turning this into a hardcore job. Because that's something that I see with other people doing similar things, that it's very easy to get burned out if you take this too much as like, I have to show up at the office now. I do that anyway because I have to, because I need to make music, I need to create something. But I try to keep it a bit not jobby, so just fun. I hope this helps. I don't know. It's just very very my own personal way in how I do that. There's like a plan, but it's more like a direction instead of like a spreadsheet. I can't deal with spreadsheets at all. Greg the Square. Dear Heimbach, I'm curious how you assemble tracks for an album. It's clear when you're working with specific equipment like Synced-Studien or Tagwerk or for an OST, but core memory has tunes from different time periods, if I remember correctly. Could you explain your process for a more open-ended release? Yes, Synced-Studien, that was literally almost every track I made on that instrument. And Tagwerk was a selection from 22 tracks or something, I think. And core memory was something where I had a curator come in, a friend of mine, and I asked him, can you please curate the record? And he did that. He put pieces together that I think, okay, this works, this doesn't work, and we discussed, and that helped a lot. And on the upcoming albums, it's something where I had planned like an album only made with the oval synthesizer, and Psy Records were already like, oh, this sounds cool, let's do it. But then I was like, nah, it has to be bigger, it has to be better. I want it to be better. So I then threw 70% of the tracks I had already done and were approved for that record away, and took only the tracks that I felt are the best. Just the best pieces that I've written where I think this will work better, this will be just better. No filler, just all good tracks. And then I assembled in a way that I feel tells a story. And it's very much oftentimes that an album goes from an open beginning into something darker and then goes into the light again. And that's how I assemble and sequence the tracks then. But I take a long time. So the first draft of that album, that comes out on Xyle end of April, that was already done basically last year. But then I completely reworked it. And that was a good process. And the tapes have arrived. I have them here and looking forward to share it with you. But listening then again to that is like, okay. It always feels like, do I have even an idea what I'm doing here? Do I even know? Do I want to know? This is another try, another experiment. Let's just see. Maybe I was completely wrong. But it helps to have someone then, of course, like Boris from Xyle Records, for this particular one, to bounce your ideas off, to get a feeling what works, what doesn't. And the best thing is, to play your music to your friends or to see what music people react to once you put it out to, and then build that album from that. I wouldn't try, like, again, to build an album only in my head. I've done that a few times, but I think it's better if I let, like, outside influences in, evaluate them, and then the album grows and happens. And it's good to leave time. It's good to leave time. Rather make more, throw a bunch of stuff away, or put it in like a gallery, like your archives, for later use maybe. And yeah, that's at least how I approach it. Chris Sherman. Dear Heinbach, I recently rewatched your videos on making Assertion. It was great to revisit them, as they were a bright spot in the midst of a miserable time for me and others, and the album is a favorite of mine. I really enjoyed the unedited video of your performance of Assertion from Fact magazine, but I realized there's no discussion of the complex patch for that song. Although it's several years old, could you tell us anything about how you patched it and synced all the different elements together? Thank you. I don't think there was too much synced, but I need to check that. Okay, so because it's been very long. So Fact Magazine, Heinbach. Okay, I can put up the link so you can watch it with me in another window. Okay, so we got a tape loop. That has piano on it. Slowing that down to half speed. Now I'm playing the syntracks using the Make Noise No Control. Filtering it. And those dulcet tones, they're also from the no control, controlling the make noise synthesizer. That's the TR-606, unmodded then still. And that's putting a clock out to somewhere. I wish I knew to what. Probably that... that clocks the no control on the mixer. We got nuclear equipment there also. Yeah, so some of these signals are split to a nuclear processor. Princeton Applied Research. Pedals looping things in time that I tempo tapped, like the blooper. Playing the mixer. Yeah, that bass drum, that's the D1000, the Metasonics D1000. And that's something that I'm probably clocking from the TR-606 too. We've got the Coco Quantos. Coco Quantos is processing the tape loops. Wow, this setup looks clean, actually. Wow. More messy now a bit. Yeah, I think that's the basic patch. So I think... cool. How's that happening? Okay. Yeah, so this piano, that's basically the Nagra loop sampled into the Coco Quantos. And now I'm sending it an envelope with one row from the no control into the VCA in. So then you get these dilip, 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 these rhythmic kind of things from the Coco Quantos, which is one of my favorite techniques on that. And it still keeps moving through the sample. So it's never repeating. And that's a Juno 60. But that Juno 60 sound is just a static chord that I layered and just playing with the mixer. It's a cool setup. Half of the stuff in that video is broken or not there anymore. I think the modular was also involved. So the Eurorack modular was also involved. And that's probably what's sending the envelope to the Coco Quantos, but it's triggered via one of the outs from the no control. Jeremiah Turner. Hi Heinbach, I'm recently interested in connecting the Zetrax organ with a main key voltage memory. You had mentioned that in a video in the past. Do you have any patching advice? I'm wondering which modulation points on the Zetrax you used to patch the main key. Grey jacks, blue jacks or green? Herzlichen Dank. Yeah, I don't do that anymore, simply because I got tired of the saved resolution. So you can tune it perfectly, and when you recall it, it will be off, and that's a limit due to the software used in the voltage memory. So it's not meant for these extreme ranges that the Zetrax has. It just isn't designed for that. So I've stopped doing that. But I used to do it with the blue, and I could get some interesting results. So I have to say some interesting results were always there. But at some point I was like, this is frustrating. I don't want to do this. So I'm not doing that anymore. And maybe you'll find a different tool to allow you to save voltages. Or maybe there's another updated version of it, but I don't know about that. But yeah, just outputs into the blue ins, which are the frequency ins, and that works kinda. It works kinder. So if you want to tune something perfectly, yeah, doesn't work. Thank you all for your questions. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you want to get a question in, subscribing on the Patreon to any tier and watching for this thread that I put up when it's time for the next one. And thanks to my patrons for all the support. You guys are lovely. Bye bye.